guys. So we're gonna try something new here. We're gonna run two cameras while we're taking this truck apart. Obviously the cab's stripped off and all the bed sides and front fenders and grill and core sport, it's all gone. It's just basically a frame. But what we're gonna do this time, we're gonna run two different cameras so you don't miss anything. Got my editor here. He's gonna remove the whole rear end. We're gonna pull it apart. We got the axles out and the third member's about to come out. But we wanted you guys to see all the action. So he's gonna be working on the rear suspension. I'll be working on the front. So you'll see all that as well. But just something new. Just trying to keep you guys satisfied with showing you what we do. And nothing too exciting, but if we're not blabbing, it'll be a time lapse. So here we go, enjoy. So this is what made Ford what it is today in the desert racing industry. The I-beam suspension was truly legendary, and I say truly because it was the jam back in the day. A-arms didn't have half the travel, or at that time they didn't produce half the travel per dollar that these I-beams could make. So now this truck in particular, it's a 66 F100. I-beams came out in 65. So essentially this is the second year for the I-beam suspension, and they were proud of it. There's even an emblem on the front fenders that said twin I-beam suspension. It works really good. In fact, guys still use it to this day. They're putting I-beams on Chevys, if you can imagine that. But check it out. But this is again, it's an AutoFab wheel travel kit is what they called it. It's an old kit. They don't make it anymore, unfortunately. But I'm sure if you ask them nicely, they might be able to make it for you. They have the drawings and dimensions and everything, but it's probably not one of their biggest sellers due to how much it costs. You know, most people with these trucks just want to lift it and make it go down the road. This is more of a race type setup for this truck. It's not, you know, it's nothing compared to today's standards in off-road racing, but it works exceptionally well. It makes about 19 inches of travel in the front, which is pretty awesome for what it is. But you can see how it's basically made. It comes with the NASCAR adjustable coil buckets. Bump stops are all into this one. The bracket for the left side I-beam is all incorporated into that, and it's actually really cool. It works really well for what it is. So I'm gonna pull this thing apart and I'll show you all the details as we go. Wow. That's not good. Boy. Time to replace the bearing, I guess, on the outside. At least. I know what the inside looks like. Alright. Pretty simple, huh? You want to know where to get these? This is how. He's smart to put his own name on the end of his hubs and his phone number. Sandy Cohn. Chances are he'll answer the phone, or maybe one of his sons. But yeah, good people. Awesome to deal with. He's the guy that built my rear end, and he made these hubs as well. Not just the hub caps, he made the actual hubs. amazing how fast parts stack up. Keeping all the powder coating stuff in one spot. These hubs, the hub is actually really lightweight, so he makes two different hubs. These are cast, and he makes a billet version of this same hub. It's about twice the cost, but he said try it, and if it breaks, we'll get you the billet ones. But I've hammered these things pretty good, and they have not let me down thus far. So really nice piece. It's covered in brake dust right now, but the construction is really nice. Get set up on the other side. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys what these kingpins look like in these I-beams. There's a top cap and a bottom cap. Right? Alright, so now it's time to loosen up these pivot points on the I-beams. We're going to go ahead and take these guys off on both sides, and we'll get these I-beams down, get them ready to be sprayed and look pretty again, and we'll pull the radius arms off, and all the associated brackets will also come off, so we get this frame looking good again. Yeah, just not happy with the way it looks, and of course the back is peeling. That was before I knew POR couldn't be exposed to the sun. So it's good for being underneath the car, but if it's exposed to the sun, it'll dull out really quick. So just be aware of that. If you do use POR 15, it does work good, but it just doesn't like being in the sun. In fact, POR sells a top coat, which I would recommend using. I have not used it, but I'm sure it's good. I do like the POR product, but just can't be in the sunlight, that's all. So let me go grab some tools and we'll get these pivots off. Alright, so I've got the I-beams off the truck. I did have one bolt that seized up on me on that pivot side, but I want to show you guys this spherical bearing that is put in here as part of the retrofit for the wheel travel kit. And it's basically what comes in these normally is like a sleeve that's encapsulated in rubber, and they're all pressed in. But this is an actual, it's like a Heim joint, but I call it a spherical bearing because, well, it's a spherical bearing inside there with a nylon liner. So best way to test these is to make sure that they don't move this way or this way. But these are tight. I'll show you the radius arm ones, which are an actual Heim joint, greasable as well. But this one actually had me kind of thinking that it was bad. But as you can see, these are FK rod ends, which in my opinion are the top-notch stuff. But you can see how big this thing is. I think the 16 means 16 millimeter. It's a JW 16. Can't really read that last part there. Oh no, it just says JW 16 FK USA. But so the way you look at a Heim joint is you want to put it in a vertical position and take the sphere inside and pick up on it, or push it this way or this way, and if it has any play, this needs to be replaced. Or you could either rebuild it or replace it. They're quite expensive, so I would recommend rebuilding them, but this one just doesn't have much time on it, so it's fine. So yeah, typically these will have a stem that go through a couple of rubber bushings that would be the stock application setup for this, but obviously it's upgraded to a Heim joint, which is good. A lot less friction. and more articulation, of course. So, all right, on to the next. We got the rear end coming off there. Having a lot of problems with seized up bolts, and that's kind of the downside of using a fine thread hardware, is that they get galled up real easily. So when you're using this stuff, it's a good idea to put some anti-seize on them when you're installing them, when they're brand new, because they get rust and they get debris in the threads, and makes things a lot harder. So anyway, yeah, when this thing goes back together, it's going to have all fine thread top lock nuts on it. So there's going to be some hardware purchase involved with this, but I guess probably I already knew this, but brake fluid is hygroscopic, meaning you can actually spray water on it to neutralize it, and it won't eat your paint. So if you do get brake fluid on your paint, make sure you just pour water all over the paint, and it'll keep you from removing your paint. So it's your tech tip for the day. Getting all the soft lines removed. The hard lines will come off too, as well as the bulkhead fittings. See, you got all my brake lines off. I figured I showed you the coil spring setup on the last side, so I didn't bore you with that. Just gotta snip those calipers off. We have our third member out. I think everyone's seen that at some point. And here's a look at the setup on the rear axles here, how it all works. It's basically like a front hub assembly on a four-wheel drive, where you have these types of nuts. It looks like a castle nut, sort of, but they're basically jam nuts. So you take one is to set the preload, and the other one is to jam it with, and then there's a ring that goes between them. This way, you just have this guy on there, and there's a locking ring, this guy, that indexes here, and two bolts go into it that keep it centered and in place, and that keeps us from having to use two lock nuts, because this is basically the locking mechanism on that. And then you have the locking nuts, or sorry, the locking bolts that go through this guy, and then these are the screws that hold the drive plate onto this, which is right there. And this drive plate is basically the hub, and you can see where the axle plugs in there with all the spines, and that's the outer hub there. So these are technically called drive plates. We won't fault my editor for putting the anodized side down. But yeah, that's how the full floating axle, or this particular full floating axle, works. And then you see an O-ring for the drive plate to maintain the gear oil inside there. This is billet aluminum, and you can see how this is a 1, 2, and then you have your rotor. So it's a two-piece hub, and these are gold, which look real fancy when they're clean. Then you have your rotor on top of that. So it's a real simple setup, and it is strong. you're seeing what a fabricated 9-inch looks like. It's actually a series of sheet metal. And you can kind of see inside here. See that, how it's has all of the, you can see those, it's probably 1/8-inch plate, but it almost looks like sheet metal. They basically just make each plate and then weld them, tack them all together. Once they have their dimension, they do all the finish welding, and that's what makes these so strong. You see the big back brace they put on it right there. That also adds a tremendous amount of strength.